Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Profitable Steward Podcast. I am your host, Jared Sorensen. I'm zooming in today from Ruby Valley, Nevada, and we're privileged to have Patti here with us today. Where are you calling in from today,
I'm from Hinsdale,
Patti?
Montana, out on the High Line, northeast corner of the state.
Very good. Very good. Well, we welcome you to the podcast. We look forward to learning from you today and encourage our listeners to, as always, sometimes you're driving, sometimes you're multitasking. I, a lot of times, will take notes even while I'm driving in my journal. Sometimes I'll open up a audio recorder after I listen to something and make voice notes for me so that I can remember the important things from what I learned and preserve that. And so we encourage you to do the same thing. And we want to give a shout out to one of our colleagues, sponsors of what we do at Ag Steward, and that is Ambrook. Last week we did a 3-day challenge, a financial challenge, where we talked about how to do enterprise accounting and the importance of tracking our numbers. We cannot measure we can't manage what we don't measure. And the very best tool that we've found to do that is the software Ambrook. So we encourage you to jump on, try their free trial if you are not already a subscriber to Ambrook. We're nearly 2 months into this new year. So it's going to be a lot easier if you start now, as of January 1st, get things in order. And it just makes bookkeeping, it's a lot less challenging. And it is definitely rewarding. So, well, Patti, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you into regenerative agriculture, a little bit about your background.
Well, first, before we get started, Jared, I want to thank you for having me on. And I really admire what you're doing. And I first came across your stuff during the Regen Egg Summit that you had, the Regen Summit.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, very good. And so I admire immensely what you're doing to help other people be profitable. Boy, all the balance and that you got going on with life and work and family and
Hmm.
all that stuff. I highly admire you. And you're definitely the ultimate definition of egg stewardship. And you're not only teaching others, but you're helping them build their own legacy. Kudos.
Well,
But
thank you for
today,
that.
let's talk about how we help people do that, make a better, healthier future.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Are you a generational agriculturalist, Patti?
Well, my family farm was in Michigan, started right after the Civil War. And so that part is, but I didn't stay there because I had an older brother and a younger sister. And my older brother was adamant that he didn't need me around. So
Okay.
I went and found other things to do. So I was crazy about the cattle business and cows in general. And so I went to Michigan State and the cattle program and then ended up in the grass range at the N-Bar Ranch, AI and cows, calving and AI and cows there for a whole couple seasons there to get started. When I left there, I went to New York State and worked for a purebred ranch, Ace Bull Herefords in New York. From there, I got to travel all the lower 48 for the most part, other than a couple states, and all the lower province of Canada. So I got to really see the whole country and know, man, I think Montana must be the right place to be to raise cows because we didn't have the diseases or all the other stuff going on, good grasses, high protein grass. And so that's how I ended up coming back to Montana after the long road of not being on the family ranch, or farm.
Yeah. When did you move to Montana?
I moved to Montana in 1990, and I moved to here in Hinsdale in 92. And I used to, when I was on my ranch up in Hinsdale, which is just north, the canyon is north of here. And I used to do a lot of spraying with the chemical Tordon on leafy spurge and stuff. And so my family was a chemical ag. My brother picked up the chemical ag stuff instantly because we not only had one family member not working at the farm, but my mom was a full-time teacher. My dad worked in the shop at nights, and then my brother worked full-time during the day at an egg supply store. And so it was like crazy that we'd have that many different incomes and still have financial troubles. But of course, this was in the 70s and everything was kind of crazy. I actually didn't start, I've started onto an extreme health kick now over the years. And I didn't realize my own history until I read the book Silent Spring. And the spraying that I did at Michigan State University, my mom was there on campus those 2 years, and she was spraying it with my brother.
Uh-huh.
And that's how I started learning about, well, what's going on with these chemicals and are they not that safe for us? Long story short, the two of them have both passed away from the same kind of cancer. And I'm like, wow, we need to do everything we can do to separate from these chemicals if we can. And so I started on to a lot more healthier direction and definitely a healthier direction for my personal health, right? Because if I can't be healthy, then whatever I'm doing isn't going to be healthy. So I started on a lot bigger health kick and got off the sugars and now currently off the carbohydrates and all regenerative meats and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to Montana and why I'm on this path of getting healthier people. Or to get healthier people, we got to have healthier plants and
Yeah.
get healthier soils to get those plants. So yeah, it all comes in a full circle. And then I was lucky enough to meet Elaine Ingham when she come in the state for the first time with the first Montana Egg Symposium where they had different little ones around the state. So I took her program, did her program online, and then was lucky enough to meet Nicole Masters the first season out the gate when she came to Montana. And so then I cabbage right onto her and learned tremendous amounts from Nicole. And so that's kind of led me down this current regenerative path that I'm on. I'm a retired teacher. I retired from teaching ag, had 17 years of teaching ag right here in our little community and stuff. So that's where I picked up on the teaching abilities and the different stuff was from teaching teenagers. And
Yeah, yeah. That's an amazing journey. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, our hearts are with Elaine's family, and after losing her recently,
yes,
definitely a great loss to those of us in regenerative agriculture. But the wonderful thing is that she's planted so many seeds, and it sounds like you're one of those, right? So her work won't die, even though she's not with us. It will absolutely carry on because of people like you.
yeah, it's for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the lessons that you've learned, and thank you for your, sharing the deep why of why you started down this journey. My wife can very much relate to that, that it started more, our journey of regeneration started more on the physical health side and trying to find answers for chronic fatigue and what doctors were calling celiac disease and
Mm.
some of these things that we just couldn't figure out. And so it's interesting. And we now know that all these things are connected, right? The way
Yes.
our food is grown absolutely affects our health. So from your mentors, specifically Elaine and Nicole, what are some of the lessons that you've learned and how have you applied those in the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, I've kind of developed it in a couple of different pathways to break down so people could understand it easy enough. One of them is rethinking weeds,
Hmm.
and Nicole taught quite a bit to me on the weed extracts of taking the exact plant, and extracting that off, and then taking that either concentrate or diluted out and put it back out onto the plant. Lo and behold, I was shocked to find that that actually worked. And so that was one of my major aha moments of actually testing that on field bindweed and then actually getting big results from it, which is, I've studied a lot with Dr. Christine Jones too. And so a lot of it must
Wow.
be the quorum sensing and how these microbes are signaling and different things. And so it's just really pretty cool and pretty interesting. But the rethinking weeds, I really think we need to understand the plant and successions so that all these weeds are just an indicator. Unfortunately, bindweed is in the indicator of your first succession clear down with your majorly disturbed soils. And it's the only plant that's down in that group. Most of the time, it's like kochia, lamb's quarter, Russian thistle, things like that that are annuals. But all of those are signals, those plants that are living in that plant succession. Those are Everybody kind of know what plant succession is. A certain group of plants grow and bring up nutrients and drop their leaf litter on the soil surface. And then the next set of plants can start growing in that soil. And the same with the microbes. The microbes that the pioneer plants are associating with are mostly just a bacteria that is can tolerate salts and is a nitrate loving microbes, which we don't want, right? Those microbes are not the microbes we need to grow really healthy plants. But those pioneer plants have to kind of do their thing to move to the next succession to get up to the succession where your Brachus family will live, your mustards and kale, broccoli, that sort of thing. Those plants are in
Mhm.
the next succession up. So they're kind of a transition to finally get to the succession. It's kind of balancing the fungi and the bacteria are balanced. And that's kind of the sweet spot. That's where we kind of want to live is there because that's where most of our agricultural plants that we want to grow live in that succession. So
Mhm.
then that's moving along a timeline, though, in nature if we just let it do its own thing. that first timeline to go from one succession to the next is, in my viewpoint of looking around, just watching stuff happen, is at least 3 years. But we can change that by our practices and actually speed it up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the
Tell us more about that. How do we do that? Because as agriculturalists, sometimes we don't have 3 years to make a bank payment. And so
Oh,
we
yes.
need, we need to, and we would look for the quick fix. That's why herbicides and pesticides are the
Mhm.
answer, right? Is because the weeds are there and next day they're dead. So it's hard to argue with the success of them from that standpoint, but we don't realize that we're actually perpetuating the problem.
Yeah, you actually didn't fix the problem. You just shot the messenger out.
Yeah.
And so that messenger's trying to relay messages to us, and maybe we're just not understanding their language well enough. And so that's what I trying to help people kind of bridge that, to understand that the microbes those pioneer plants live with and communicate with and like are different microbes than the ones that are over in the balanced succession of one-to-one succession. And so we've got to get the soil changed and the habitat of that soil changed for those other microbes that we want, like our protozoa, for example. Protozoa eat bacteria. And so when they eat bacteria, then they get too much nitrogen when they consume them, and they got to poo that out or get rid of it. And then that
Hmm.
is plant available. Well, but those protozoans have to have enough food to eat. So if you don't have high enough numbers of bacteria in the first place, they don't have a food source, and they really don't have the habitat. I've noticed that those protozoans seem to come when we have more leaf litter on the soil surface. In fact, they come with the leaf litter. So that's one way that I think a person could, because your goal would be to get the right microbes in the soil to work with the right plants. And so in order to get those protozoan that you want to work with, which don't even live in the first succession, they're only in the next succession. We need to have the right plants and some leaf litter on soil surface. I call it the roof to their house. If there isn't mulch up there or leaf litter of some kind or living plants, we've got to shade that area so we're not baking them. And then those protozoan can live as long as there's enough food source. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We want to feed the bacteria in order to have enough of them to feed the protozoans. And so those protozoans come on native grasses, though. So you'd take any native grass plant and put it in a bucket of water and seek that out. I don't think it's going to take very long, maybe at max 3 days, to get those protozoans to really be massive amounts of protozoan. You need to know how to use them, because that's a lot of protozoan, so you got to have a lot of bacteria in order for them to be able to live. But just kind of
Okay.
like planting seeds of those protozoans in the soil to kind of leap jump the soil over into the next succession and the plants into that next succession.
And
Plants are
so,
easier because you can figure out what plants are growing, and that's telling you where your soil's at. And then you can plant some more profitable plants that will grow in that same succession, whether it's a mustard or a canola or something like that, that you could plant that will grow there and wants to grow there. And then you plant some of the plants from the next succession that are more profitable or whatever in that cover crop. So then you've got plants from both successions and both microbes kind of getting them to work together where that we can start moving in the right direction.
cool. How much credence do you give to soil type, like cation exchange capacity, high alkalinity versus acidic?
Well, those things are gonna change with what plants you got, how deep of root systems you have, if you got worms or not, and
Hmm.
all different things that's gonna help change it. I'm more of a, uh, just out there on the ground, walking around, dig a hole, figure out what's going on, and rather than using as many tools,
Okay.
because the microbes and the worms and everybody, they're gonna balance that out. But the salts, we gotta have if we got salts, which we do in Montana, and I suppose you do it in your region,
Yeah. Pretty
anywhere in the
extensive.
anywheres in the West, we probably do. So we gotta get deeper root systems that will push those salts back down into the soil and not have them up at the soil surface. Bindweed takes up sodium, and so does kochia. So those plants wanna do that job. They actually think they are doing that job. So we gotta
Mhm.
get other plants like, spring barley that could do that job that we could actually make a cash flow off of. So
Okay.
we need to be able to figure out which plants will help me and have a plan of that's what I need to be planting instead of
Yeah.
let nature plant what she wants to plant to fix the problem.
Okay. So do you utilize soil testing? If so, what do you look at?
Yeah, I mostly I would rather test the microbes. I like working
Okay.
with the report, right? And he can tell you exactly how many protozoans you got, which type you have, which nematodes you have, which the nematodes aren't going to come without the protozoan because they got to eat them.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like we got to have enough bacteria, lots of bacteria, and enough protozoan to eat those that have protozoan doing their job. And they can provide 70% of the nitrogen to the plants, the protozoan all by themselves, even with
Wow.
the nematode.
Yeah.
Nematode eats the protozoan. Now we got even a bigger load of nitrogen going to those plants. So we kind of want to get to where we can have protozoans and nematodes, which come with earthworms. All those are in the same succession area. So that's why if we can find earthworms, we know we're in a really good place. We're kind of where
Okay.
we want to go. If we don't have them, usually it's the habitat isn't right. Like if I go looking for fishing worms, I'm going to go look in the grass. I'm not going
Uh-huh.
to look in the tilled garden because they're eating off the root exudates from that grass.
Yeah. And so in a grazing system, a grass on grazing system, if worms are absent, what does that indicate that's off?
That indicates that we've had too many disturbances, probably,
Okay.
or we don't have any leaf litter, right? If we've grazed too short and they've ate all the leaf litter that was on the ground, we got problems, right? So we go kind of, I say it's like going play Monopoly and we go back to start.
Uh-huh.
We had too big a disturbance. Overgrazing is a disturbance. If we had a fire, that'd be a disturbance. If we happened to till it or we sprayed anything on it, doesn't matter what it is. It could be insecticide for the grasshoppers, or it could be the um, herbicide or whatever. All of that stuff is sending us back to starting over.
Okay.
So when our worms aren't there, we've had to reset and go backwards too much, or we
Okay.
did, with the drought or whatever, something caused it to go back that far. That we got to get the cover back in order to get back where we want to go. But
Yeah.
we're going to ask the plant to help us with that part.
How much effect does deworming cattle have on earthworms? I know it's very detrimental to the dung beetles, but would that also be a causal factor for the lack of earthworms? It would. Okay.
Yep. So Jonathan Lundgren's work, if you haven't seen any or
Yeah.
anybody else out there, they need to kind of follow some of what he's doing and stuff. He's had some great PhDs study it underneath of him and stuff. But yeah, we just need to really get off of them, and we could plant plants to help ourselves get off of them. That will help the cow with the worming and self worming, so that chicory's a great one. Chicory's great for its roots are unbelievable, and it's a plant that I think under range conditions should be utilized quite a bit, right? And then
Sure.
the cows can pick and choose. Sandpoint's another one that you could have, either with a little bit of supplement. I don't know if I would feed 100% sandpoint, but it's something that would help those cows get rid of worms. And I think a lot of it might be their own immune system. I've had a lot of cows over my lifetime, and when a cow gets loaded up on worms, and I deworm her with one wormer, she still looks like she's loaded up a month later. I deworm her with a paste or an injectable, something different, a different type of wormer than the poron was, and she's still loaded up, and she's just on the call wagon. Get her out
Uh-huh.
of there and her heifer calf with her. I don't
Sure.
want those genetics or those cows that are that susceptible to worms, because all she's doing is spreading worms around the place that I don't need happening. The majority of cows, I would challenge people to test them to see if you need to be worming. I bet we're worming a high percentage of the cows for no reason, for the worm part of it. If
Yeah.
we test it and see. It's just been too easy. I remember having to do it the hard way. As a kid, we had to do it with paste. The cows would spit the whole thing out on the ground, and you're like, wow, this does not look cost effective.
Yeah.
Then they having to move to the injectable, which I don't know if you like giving shots or not, but that could turn into a wreck too. And
Yeah.
so it's like was so easy to do the Coron, and then we've become friends with the vet or the salesperson, and we want to give them a little business, and so pretty soon it's just what we do. And unfortunately, a lot of guys have started picking up doing that twice a year. Like when I was younger, we only did it in November, and you
Yeah. All.
hopefully, yeah, a little bit before the first November, so we didn't put the grubs in the backs of the cattle.
Yeah. Yep.
So that time of year, it's less harmful come spring than if we decide, oh, in the spring, let's put it on just for a little bit of extra precaution or for flies or whatever. That's devastating for the insects on the range. The cow pies aren't breaking down. So all of those nutrients that's in the cow pie that should be going on are not going anywhere. So that's just devastating. I think when you look out across the whole range country, we're lacking not only the cow pies going in the soil, but all of those bones that used to be from cattle and bison or elk or whomever dying on the prairie, they're not out there anymore. So all that bone meal type product isn't going into the soil either. So it's like, wow, what are we doing? When we take the whole animal to the butcher and then we don't get any of those byproducts back that would go back out on the range is, I think, not good.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the bigger issue here, whether it's worming or any kind of side that we use, is we are killing the messenger and we're addressing the symptom and not the root cause of the problem.
Right.
Why do we do that in agriculture? I mean, when did this become vogue to take a path that really is not solving the problem?
Well, I almost think personally, I think it come from having fewer people on the land, right? So we used to have more friends that were in farming or ranching close to us, and those were the people we communicated with. Now you don't have as many as those, and your buddy became your salesperson or your agronomist or your chemical egg sale guy. They become your friend.
Okay. Yeah.
That's where I think some of it's come from. Plus, we've have gotten our places too big, too many cows or whatever. Too it's slower to go back to some of these other practices than well, not in the case of not worming. I mean, that's not slower, but you know what I mean. That
Yeah.
we still keep wanting to have a easy button where I think we need to stop thinking about the easy button and where's the long haul button that's going to fix the problem over the long haul.
It sounds like from your previous statement, if we do it right, it can speed up the natural process.
Mm.
And so rather than letting nature do it on its own, which it will, and nature will always have the last laugh. Nature will always win and prevail because it has way deeper pockets than any of us do. There are specific things that we can do that actually help speed that up.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So on a let's talk a little bit from the ranching side and then we'll switch to the farming side. From a grazing standpoint, maybe you put up hay but you're not necessarily a farmer. You've got
Right.
you've got minimal equipment and your cow is the harvester. What are some of the best practices that you've seen as you've traveled throughout North America that have accelerated these processes and that are actually working with nature, working with the cow, and God put them on this earth to do their job, and we can support them in that. What
Yep.
what do you see?
The number one thing is what some people are calling the 14 rule, 14-month rest, right? So you don't have to buy anything other than maybe one string of poly line to split your pasture in half or split all your pastures in half one time. For sure, split your winter pastures so you have two different winter pastures. Man, I've seen ranches that got more grass than they know what to do with because of how they've managed it just with one single poly wire running down through the middle of their biggest pastures. And
Okay.
so once they graze that pasture, and hopefully they're not grazing it so low that you get into worms, because you're grazed so low down on the plants, that's where you're picking up the worms. If you're up higher on the plant, you're not picking up those worms. So if you rotate right and you get out of that pasture, and then that pasture you don't come back into it for any reason, and you don't let them go back without a back fence. You don't let them go back
Mhm.
because they're going to go back and pick out young grass plants, native grass plants that you don't want anything touching. So you would put up a back fence so they can't come back. So they got 14-month rest on that pastures. Every grass, everything in that pasture is going to get to go to maturity the next season, have seed, do its own thing, and get healthier and better.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have so much grass that it's just unbelievable. You don't have to do the daily rotations or the high density stock grazing when you just split these pastures in half. You do have to know where your water sources are and how that's going to work. But the ranches that have done it that way just have got incredible grass.
Yeah.
And they just much money.
That makes a lot of sense. And if you can incorporate that one principle of rest, it can jumpstart things. It can really help if you can stop overgrazing and implement rest. And so amen to what you said. And you called that the 14,
Yeah,
the
I think it's
14
called
month rule.
18 month rule. Yeah.
With that, which maybe I'll play the devil's advocate a little bit here and say complete recovery may not take 14 months.
But I
And
wouldn't go back.
you
I
wouldn't.
still,
What about in a non-brittle environment such as our irrigated meadows
yeah,
or places, east of the Mississippi where recovery is happening really fast?
you could, as long as you're going to leave leaf litter on the soil. So
Yeah.
if you take
Okay.
that leaf litter off, you went right back to start over, right? That the leaf litter is that valuable that you want to keep it there. And so that's why I would prefer that we're like, okay, even if you can't do it on the whole place, at least try it on a couple pastures where that you can start seeing the results. And for sure on the winter pasture, the winter calving, it works fantastic where you got a pasture in the fall that the cows are going into. And then come spring, they go into a new pasture that's clean,
Hmm.
that doesn't have cow pies there, so there isn't any worm things getting broken. And then they calve in that new tall grass, and then that pasture is going to get rested again, right?
Yeah,
So that it gets a rest. And so you'll always have a bigger growth stand of plants in that calving pasture by having two of them instead of one.
makes sense. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. What are the other principles that you see that people are applying that are improving and working with succession and natural processes? Rest is absolutely important. Anything else that stands out?
Oh, yeah, for sure. All the practices Roger Engerlin has adopted has been incredible, and so he put together a slurry sprayer with Nicole, right? And they're able to put in that it's a old I don't know if it's an army truck or unless it's an old spray truck, for
Okay.
fight fire or whatever, so it's big, and
Uh-huh.
they've got it set up where you could put in compost or worm castings and different things and not plug it up.
Mm.
And so they call that a slurry. So they're slopping that slurry out on the pasture, and he puts in seeds in there even. One year when I was at Rogers, he had I bet he had 25 bags of seed
Wow.
plants that was going to go in the test plots to go back out on the ranch. So some of them went in the slurry out on that away, and others he fed them to them through their mineral.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so then they were into cow pie. So you ever see a cow pie that's got green needle grass shooting up underneath of it,
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So you're like you're not only planting the seed, but you're giving the seed a really good start with that fertilized cow pie.
Yeah. And so with that, was he brewing the compost or was it more of
No,
an extract process?
no, they were just putting in like humic acid, worm castings,
Okay.
stuff like that. I think what else? Kelp seaweed are in it. And so that's what was going in it. I don't think actually Roger did go to put in his own worms, and I don't know if he's really actually done a Johnson Sioux. I would put Johnson Sioux bioreactor in it and only extract it. I would not be brewing anything. I would extract it right off the Johnson Sioux
Okay.
finished compost. So it's a finished compost in 6 months, and then the worms eat it for another 6 months. And so it's really a year before you're using it. And it really looks like worm castings at that point, and it pretty
Okay.
well will melt in water. And so that I would put in it and out.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to be really cautious, you would send that off to the lab and figure out, well, which protozoans and what nematodes are in it or what is in it so that you know what you got going on.
Can you, for our listeners, explain the difference between extracts and compost?
Well, the compost is the raw product itself. So
Or
it's the
I guess
organic.
compost tea is what
Okay,
I was
yes.
going. And yeah, go ahead and start with the compost, but tea and extracts, I didn't know the difference for a long time. And I think I was trying to brew.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would let it go anaerobic. I would let it go too long and it would actually switch. So I'd probably doing maybe more harm than good.
Yeah.
Compost tea, compost extract, and what the difference is and when you would look at the different applications of those.
Okay, the first thing that I learned composting from Elaine and in Berkeley, one of the farm to school things down there in Berkeley. But
Mhm.
anyhow, where that you the difference between compost and finished compost is two different things.
Okay.
So we make a compost, it starts breaking down, and you think, I've turned it 5 times. I've done everything the organic guys want me to do. It should be good to go, right? But if you've only been working with the pile for a month, you need to let the pile set for at least 6 months to let those microbes mature in there. It's kind of like I was saying that we have the bacteria, but protozoa are going to eat them. Well,
Hmm.
they have to have time to develop and get that life all going in this pile, and you can't do it in a short period of time. At the Sleeping Buffalo, which is a greenhouse here, not very far from me, it's a hot spring, and they put in 24-foot by 20-foot beds. They were going to buy soil for it, which was going to break the bank. And I'm like, oh, why don't we make compost instead? So we made compost from available sources right there. But of course, this is all in one season, and they're like, well, let's put the compost in the beds. And so we made hugo cultures and put the compost in the beds. That
Uh-huh.
was not finished compost. It looked fine, but the microbes weren't there, and it wasn't fine. So the plants grew um, at level 1. Are you familiar with John Kemp's Plant Health Pyramid? At level 1, they were like
No.
baseline. I mean, the plants looked fine, but they were ill because aphids were on them by the trillions. You couldn't even tell what blossom it was because there were so many aphids on it because the compost wasn't mature.
Okay. Yeah.
So the compost caused the problem, right? So you got to let that mature first. Once you have a mature compost, then in the protocol with the Johnson Street, they usually send that compost through worms, right? So those worms are digesting that compost then, and now you have a high fungal worm casting coming out of the worms from that Johnson Stew, which takes a year to do to
Okay.
make that happen. I take my Johnson Stew down to the root cellar and let the worms work all through the winter in the root cellar.
Okay.
You're not freezing out. Here outside, they would freeze out, and then I would just start with eggs in the spring.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Makes
then
sense.
to extract, all I do is take maybe a quart of compost and put it in what they call an extracting compost tea bag, and it's real fine strained, so the materials aren't coming through it, but the microbes can. And so then we strain off the microbes off the compost into a bucket of ambient temperature water, whatever temperature you're going to put out onto the land, temperature of the day. That's the temperature of the water you want to extract with. So you don't want to do anything that shocks them.
Okay.
And we'd want to, if you could, use rainwater, but if you can't, then we need to dechlorinate the water, make sure there isn't chlorine in there because that's going to kill your microbes. So
Yeah.
make sure we
Just
got real clean water.
just let it sit and off gas. Is that
Well, you can
best?
off gas it or you can use vitamin C tablets.
Okay.
Because off gassing is probably the easiest way if you're having to deal with it.
Hmm. Yeah.
But then we just extract those microbes off. Now that tea's turned into like a root beer color of water, and that water is the extract, and then it's going out onto the plants or to get diluted out to get sprayed onto the plants. That's the extract.
Okay. And on that extract, is there a shelf life to that? Is there a period of?
You want to do it right away. Yeah,
Okay.
you
Don't
don't
let it
wait.
sit.
You're doing it right away, and it's
Gotcha.
usually within an hour or so.
Hmm.
Compost tea would be taking that same bag of compost and now we're putting an air bubbler through it. Or sometimes in the big extractors, they're literally forcing air right through the compost. Right?
Mm.
So that's actually getting more microbes off the compost than we did with the hand massaging and extracting.
Okay.
But you're getting billions of them with the hand, so it's enough. With the air forcing through it, they're not only forcing air through it, but they're also causing the air-loving microbes to reproduce faster and reproduce at alarming rates because of all that oxygenated water. And so 3 days is max on that. Anything over 3 days, you have really created something you don't want because
Right. Yeah.
we got the wrong microbes that are living in there. And if it runs out of air after you've um, aerated it, you're definitely going to have the wrong microbes. So yeah, you want to be time sensitive on that. And I've done it before, and I got great pictures from looking at it under the microscope and everything. It's very exciting. It's fun because you see all kinds of stuff that you might not see in the extracted, and you definitely don't see in the soil sample when you
Yeah.
look at it under the microscope. For practical purposes, I don't use any compost teas anymore. It's all
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good, and that's the route that we've gone to as well. It's a lot more forgiving,
Mhm.
less technical, and even though we
Right.
do have William DeMille who has gone through Elaine's classes and can look at things under a microscope, not always is he available, or we're in a different ranch, and so it's a lot easier just to do the extract for
Yeah.
us and get good results. So you're gonna make a lot of salespeople mad here, I think, by
I'm
telling
like,
telling them
well,
these things.
Maybe that's why I'm not getting to be a keynote speaker very often.
Well, but
Uh, but they do sell biological inoculants, and I'm a firm believer of using them. I use them on every seed. And
okay.
so Roger was using them on his seeds plus his worm castings. He did both on the seeds, and then he put them through an air no-till drill and put them out on land where it wasn't too rocky. So he did
Mhm.
plant seed too that way. So he did all three things to get seed out there. And plus, whenever he bale grazed or had too much feed in one place and the cows would poked it in some, that caused the heritage bank of seed to germinate, right? Where they got the signal to germinate. And so then those plants are coming from stuff that they'd never seen before, it just shows
Yeah.
up because they're coming from what was in the soil and just sitting there dormant, waiting for the right trigger to germinate. And those microbes are there too. They're dormant. They just go in dormancy. They're not sure how long they can stay in dormancy. I think they probably could stay in there probably pretty much kind of like the semen tank forever as long as the conditions are right. But once the right environmental conditions are right, and maybe other signals from other microbes, they come to life and they start living out their life again and start working. There's so much
Okay.
we don't know that it's crazy, but what we do know is really cool.
It is. It is. And that takes a lot of humility to say, hey, we don't have all the answers. So on the farming side, some similarities there, but row crop farmers are in a tough place economically right now. Hay farmers haven't been making a lot of money. Facetiously, I spoke at a Farm Bureau conference and I asked the audience how many were ranchers, how many were farmers, and there's a couple that raised their hand that they were alfalfa farmers. And I said, "What's your break even cost?" And I was really surprised. Most ranchers don't know this, but farmers do. And he said, "Oh, it's like $175 a ton." And I said, "Oh, that's higher than I thought." Well, what did you average on your crop this last year? He said, "Oh, about 120." And he said, "But don't worry, we're making up for it in volume. We're selling more of it."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he knew what he was saying. It's just
Yeah.
like that's the mentality, right? We pride ourselves on tons per acre, bushels per acre, on our yields. We're starting to measure more the quality of the crops that we're producing because the market is dictating that. But let's bring in the economic piece to this. If a person can do what you're saying and close that loop and produce their own fertility on site, what does that do for them economically?
Yeah, I think there would be extra money there to be able to figure out to do more practices because you'd have a little extra money to work with. But I'll give you this one story. It might help you. That I had these two. Granted, these are just two individual plants, but it's still the concept is the same. There's two summer squash plants, both zucchinis that I planted in the same bed. Their leaves were touching each other, and I should throw that picture in there. And they were both big, gorgeous plants, both dark green. So looking at them, I thought they're healthy, right? So, and that's what we've thought, or I've thought my whole life. When John Kemp started saying that nobody under 70 or 80 has ever seen a healthy plant before, I'm like, what? That's crazy. But so I learned his lesson, and I understand it fully now. So anyhow, these plants they got the same seed inoculant, they got the same water, they got the same extracts put on them, they got the same micronutrients put on them, which is key coming up. I'll talk about that. And so
Okay.
these plants are both growing and are big and look healthy. Well, it was a drought year, and the hoppers had already ate most everything on this property, and the neighbor harvested his pivot. And so those millions of grasshoppers come over. And so they're setting on these plants. The next day I go over there and they're eating one of them. They set on the other, but eating the one. The next
Uh-huh.
couple days, because I teach school on 4-day school week. So I went back there on Friday or Thursday evening, and the one plant was ate to sticks. Absolutely nothing left but sticks. And the spider, they had these great big garden spiders living in there. They're eating grasshoppers. So I encourage people to keep all spiders on their places.
Yeah.
So anyhow, this one plant got ate to the ground. The other one's still big and green, looks good. And the hoppers were sitting on it, but they wouldn't touch it. And I'm like, this was the only green plant for miles around, miles.
Uh,
And they wouldn't eat it because it was the plant health pyramid number 4.
okay.
But what was the difference between the two plants? Because they got both the same practices. The difference was the genetics.
Okay.
The one that survived and was healthy, and it lived all the way until 28 degrees. It produced squash all fall. It was a heritage variety, the old time variety, and the other one was a hybrid.
Interesting. From seeds that you had saved, or where did you
Nope,
get the heritage?
I purchase, just purchase
Yeah.
seeds.
Yeah. Really cool.
That I think the farmers really need to get back to some maybe old time genetics and some the old school. We always just kept our own seed. Now I'm really going to get ousted out, right? Get rid of the seed dealers too.
Yeah. This heretic here. What are we talking about?
Is this crazy or what? So, but if they, they used to buy seed from each other and swap seed because it's environmentally situated for that environment to be growing there and stuff. And I think we can probably clean and get better seed than we're at least going to get the first cut of seed because in the bedding plant industry, what they call it, the packing companies, where we get a packet of seed, we can't seed the seed in it. We're not getting a very high cut of that seed. I mean, the very best seed went back into the industry. It's not something they're selling in that pack. So when I get a pack, I open up a pack and sort all the big seeds, bigger and heavy seeds onto one side and others on another side. And I keep the big ones, plant them, and then move
Okay.
forward with genetics from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Really cool. So talk a little bit about the micronutrient side. What other things besides the biologicals are you doing to produce healthy plants?
Yeah. So if you look at John Kemp's plant health pyramid, it will really help you. He talks about the ingredients that it takes to get plants to do photosynthesis better. And he was first talking about this, and he was saying that most plants are only doing like 20% of their photosynthetic abilities. And I'm like, what? You mean we got plants out here that are only doing 20% of production of what they could be doing? And actually, the average is lower than that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so when I started putting the micronutrients on, it encourages the plant to do photosynthesis better because some of these minerals are tied up with our other agrochemicals, right? So like glyphosate is one that ties up those minerals to get so the plant can use it. So you apply those micronutrients to the plant, and then the plant can get lots bigger, lots stronger. It will start producing way more production from photosynthesis. So it's putting way more out into the roots because it's used what it needed to grow its own structure and it still had excess. And so then it starts putting fat on. The plants actually get fat.
Interesting.
So when they put that fat layer on, that's when they see these screaming numbers of the root exudates, like the 60% and higher numbers going out into the soil profile, is when you already got this super healthy plant to put fat on. And so I tell people to look for indicators of the actual indicators that a person can see. Then they have to be measuring. You can measure with bricks, but you can still see way more than you can even find out with bricks. Is that your plant should have really short inner nodes. So where the leaf nodes are at, the shorter the better. The bigger around, the better. And the bigger, thicker the leaves, the better. I've had pepper plants double their leaf in size on the same
Uh-huh.
plant, same genetics, same everything. Just once it started getting everything it needed to do photosynthesis, the leaves were double in size. And they're going to be thicker. They're going to be hairier. The hairier the plants, the better. And so
Uh-huh.
some people are like, well, there's not hair on plants. But if you can get like a zucchini has hair all over it when you pick it,
Mm.
pay attention so that's what you want because it's a store that's getting washed off. Some of that's getting washed off or removed before shipping even. But all the plants can have this little hairy effect to them that you want. And then they're going to put on this wax layer. You can easily see the wax layer in the whole cabbage, broccoli, kale, that family. You can just rub it right off because they get fat really fast because they can live down there with that first succession of microbes. They can live in what I call dirt, fat and healthy. But the other plants usually take longer and better soil and better microbes, more diversity of microbes to be able to get to that fat layer that you're looking for. Once it gets there, there isn't not even a grasshopper will eat it. No pests
Yeah.
are going to deal with it, and you're not going to have any disease problems either.
Super cool. I didn't
Just
know that plants can get fat. That is
yeah.
cool.
Well,
Mm.
yeah, with James White's stuff, they can actually eat other microbes, so they're not even vegetarians
Super cool. Well, let's pull this into the human health side. Why are we dealing with so many degenerative diseases right now at this point?
because those nutrients aren't in the plant, right? And they're so low. Like with the refractometer, I'll do that too, especially in the greenhouse. Check plants and stuff. But if the plant's got these visual signs, I almost don't need to check with the refractometer. All you got to do is taste it, and the taste will be amazing. Stuff like I remember as a little tiny kid eating, or most people don't know what that even tastes like because we haven't had it for these decades, right? I call it a cardboard tomato is what we've kind of been eating.
Yep.
no flavor whatsoever. Well, so you're going to taste it when those plants are super healthy. And then they say even Dan Kitchener doesn't know what exactly plant nutrition density is because they don't have a way of saying this is the benchmark. I'm like, well, the benchmark is the plant doesn't have any pests or diseases and it tastes amazing. And it has storage. The
Yeah,
storage life
increased shelf life.
increases dramatically. I picked some kale that was in the sleeping buffalo, and these kale plants were like stellar all year. They got planted in the spring, and we were harvesting them all the way to Thanksgiving, and could have left them in the greenhouse and let them go on, but we terminated them. So I harvested some at Thanksgiving time, and I still had them in the refrigerator in a bag, and I pulled them out in mid-January, and they still looked edible.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, is this crazy or what? It looks as good as what's in the grocery store.
Yeah.
But what's in the grocery store crashes in a week,
Hmm.
and if you took both leaves and shook them, the one that is got plant nutrient density and was able to do photosynthesis really well, it's going to be strong and stand right up there and not even break, where the other one is going to fail the test.
Yeah. And so nutrient density absolutely affects our health. What about the toxin load that we're dealing with, and all of us are exposed to that?
Yeah.
How do we mitigate that? And living in a toxic environment, even in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, we still have chemical drift.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the same experience here. They come to our town because we're close to the Canadian border, and it's just really rugged land all around, and no farmers up in that area. And they still tested in the middle of the organic fields. They still found glyphosate. So yeah, I think we just got to start where we're at and reduce how much we're using.
Okay.
And there's two things, but one, we absolutely need to balance the pH of that water that's going in the tank with those chemicals. I don't care where it is, the chemical label somewheres will say what pH level that water needs to be at. Farmers, when I talk to them about this, they're like, well, we've never seen that part of the label. Like, well,
Yeah.
could you? I mean, the label is ginormous and you need a magnifying glass to read any of it. But this is where I'd use an AI tool to find out. Ask AI what is the pH, required pH for this particular herbicide or fungicide, whatever it is, and figure out what that is. And then you're going to have to clean your water well enough to get as clean a water as you can get, and then balance the pH in that water before you actually use it in your sprayer. When you
Okay.
do, you could probably drop the rate of how much you're putting in the sprayer by 25 to 30% because
Hmm.
the chemical company has increased it to the rate level because they know you're not going to balance pH.
Okay.
So it's not working as well as it could be if you did balance pH. So
Yeah.
that's all in Nicole Masters' book. The best place to start with hers is her book. Her book is
Okay.
pretty in depth and a little thick to read. So there's other books I would recommend reading before hers, but hers has really got some of the true answers in there that would really help people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, from your experience that you shared at the beginning, having lost family members, and it sounded like you're able to trace that back to the way
Insecticide.
to insecticide exposure. I think sometimes we don't correlate that, and maybe we don't want to correlate that because we don't know what else to do, right? And so we just say, well, I mean, if we're going to be in business, that's a cost of doing business. That's a high cost, and that's a cost that just um, beyond the economic stability, beyond the whole cause of regeneration, and beyond stewardship, we need to care for ourselves and we need to care for our families. And
Well, and plus I'm still carrying some of it. I just wasn't the unlucky one, right? My body adjusted to it or whatever, or my immune system's dealt with it or whatever. But we're all getting something that we probably wouldn't have got if we had had the chemicals not in the picture. Just each person is individual and we carry the load differently or the load affects them differently. So the quicker we can get them out of the system, where's that going to start? It's going to start with each individual. Right. Where I'm less like, I won't have it on the property,
mm,
if I don't buy it, then I don't get tempted to go put it on the driveway to clean up the weeds in the driveway. Whatever it is, that gotta try to figure out. But if we can get this plant succession thing working and we figure out our soils and we do get to that soil that's a balanced 1-to-1, we can literally grow anything we want. You just
yeah,
need to really be growing. You can't leave the ground bare. Here in Montana, the ground's bare, 7 months out of the year or longer
right.
every year.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a disaster every year, and where that sun can bake that soil at 140 degrees. And so there's just no microbes in that. A lot of guys are no-till, but they have shovels on the no-till drill that are disturbing the top soil layer at whatever depth they set the shovel at, whether it's 3 inches or 4 inches or 6 inches. That's still a disturbance from that 6 inches and up. And where that shovel hit the soil, it's like concrete. Everywhere steel hits the ground is. So there's a compaction layer at the depth of that shovel. So we're really growing our plants in just that 4 or 5 inches of soil that's above where the drill was set. And that's where all the salts are at. And there, you dig a hole and you're like, well, what is all this crystals and stuff in here? It probably is your money from previous years sitting there
Uh-huh.
that hasn't been used right or utilized up. That's just sitting there that now the plant has to deal with, and the microbes are having to deal with them. And a lot of microbes aren't dealing with them. There's like, we're just out of here. Well, we'll just wait till things get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to
There's
dig a hole and
okay.
dig a pretty deep one, because in Montana we have a plow pan. Plow pan's only 2-3 inches under the ground,
Uh-huh.
and then you have our plants from our plow pan from whatever it is we've been using in the last 20 years. And then we have our chisel plow pan, which is deeper. And then we have the historic one, which is deeper yet. So you may have 3 or 4 layers of compaction that your plants are having to deal with. And the only plant that I know that can deal with those is Canadian thistle, and it deals with it with no problem at all. It's like, I can go through that. I think it can almost go through concrete, because it can go through way more than anything else can even dream of going through. But if we dig the hole and find out, then we know we need to get some plants that got really deep root systems and get them working for us, and get them inoculated with bacteria, with microbes, so that they're set up shop in the root system. Communication's going good through the roots with the plant and everything. And then you give it enough micronutrients for photosynthesis and it takes off, and the plant is going to do it.
Yeah.
Take care of lots of your problems.
Yeah. Very good. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked a lot about the challenges in agriculture, but what keeps you hopeful?
What keeps me hopeful? Well, I got a brand new store in our community that I can go buy regenerative meats and flour and different stuff at. So I'm really excited now. I used to have to drive
Nice.
all the way to Fort Benton, which is 270 miles or whatever, to go to the store to get that type of quality of food. So I'm hopeful for that. I'm also appreciative of somebody like Paul Brown that will deliver it to my house
Uh-huh.
at a price that I know what I'm going to pay when I push the button. Don't have to wait for the shipping button or anything. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so I'm really hopeful for that. I mean, if you can afford it, that would be the way to go. I think we really hone in on our diets and recognize what we're eating is probably causing our problems. If we start eliminating the sugars and reduce the carbohydrates dramatically, then you won't have to buy as much food, and you actually don't eat as much food. And I'm not even hungry on this type of diet. So
Mm-hmm.
that it just is changing a lot of mindsets, and then you got all the peer pressure, where I'm in a little tiny town and I don't have much peer pressure because I don't listen to them if they was talking about me. So I guess you got to have some tough skin, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. What is your definition of stewardship, Patty?
well, I think we have to steward the land well enough that the next generation, the generation after that, continuously forever can pick it up and say, this is what I want to do and I can afford to do it. And
Mhm.
it's a quality enough of soil to do it in. That we got to start really caring way more about ourselves. Most guys don't care enough about themselves, and gals, that they're like, whether it's sleep or whatever, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or God, when I was young. I don't need to sleep. I can get by with 3 or 4 hours, but all of that's false information, and that's all hurting you. So I think we really need to figure out how to get our own individual healthy, and then get our family healthy, and then we can steward all kinds of stuff, because that
Amen.
becomes a priority, right? Where that my priority is to get these chemicals, not just beating up glyphosate, but glyphosate is the chelator, and I do want to get it out. And so in my book, Better Beef, we're really talking about how do we get a product that's clean, which was a real challenge in writing the book in the grain section of it, because I got a section in there how to finish them on
Uh-huh.
grain without the sides and the
Mhm.
GMOs. It's work to find the product. So if more guys was growing the product that was clean in the first place, then that would be better for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, tell us a little bit more about your book and how do we get a hold of it? We'll put the link in the show notes, but
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've been teaching school for 17 years, and so I wasn't writing then. And my mom had told me my whole life that you need to be writing a book. And I just laugh at her like, I didn't pass English class. Why would I write a book? But anyhow, I started writing this winter because I retired last spring. And so I started writing. And so I'm just trying to really help the small producer, homesteader type person that doesn't know or have the experience or understand all of this terminology or anything. So it's a book that's going to help the everyday person and the youth groups, the 4-H FFA homeschoolers that want to raise a market beef with county fair or whatever. It's going to help them. I got a part of the book that I discovered in all of I did a lot of showing of cattle, so I did a lot of halter breaking. So I
hmm
discovered a way to infront the cattle. And so you can infront any heifer or bull that's coming onto your place and get them where that they are not fearful of you. And they will work through the chutes like nothing, save you a monster amount of time just by spending about 20 or 30 minutes at different times. You got to do it 2 or 3 different times. You don't do it all at once.
okay.
To be able to get these cattle to be like not fearful of us. Because I tell you what, they smell us and they're like, wow, they just had food for supper. And so they're fearful of us in every move. They're like, is this the day that they're going to kill me? Or is this the time they're going to kill me? So when you come in front of
Yeah.
them, you get rid of all that. And then you can do all kinds of things with them with the halter breaking or go catch your 1-ton bull out in the middle of the breeding pasture, throw a rope on him and walk him in the trailer. You can do those things just by learning how to infront these cattle. So it's in this book. So I have a advanced section for the ranchers and what the newest technology is out there for heat detecting and
Okay.
use radio collars. And there's all kinds of really good stuff that's I think is very uplifting and hopeful that it's can be amazing. I mean, the hours that I spent heat detecting on the Enbar Ranch alone was incredible because we had black cattle. We had a
Uh-huh.
sample full of black night out before you quit. So we literally only had a 4-hour night before we were
Uh-huh.
loading the truck up to get it back out there again. These new devices are kind of like a Fitbit for cows, but it's in their ear and
Okay.
it will take their temperature so you know if she's in heat or not. So
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, would that ever been amazing?
Yeah.
I could have
Yeah.
done that, for time wise and everything. I think that part of it is going to be really exciting, and so a lot of stuff in the book.
Cool. Well,
The other book, yeah, the other
encourage you
book is about gardening, but my theory is how to grow any healthy plant. Doesn't matter if it's green needle grass or whatever it is. Every plant needs to get healthy. So if we can do things to help feed the biology and get the plants to do photosynthesis better, we all are going to be amazingly better off because we won't need the sites.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's great. We'll encourage you to our listeners to check out the links. What are the names of the books so we can search them?
So let's see, the short name is Better Beef Without Breaking the Bank.
Okay.
And then the other one is Better Gardens. Can't remember the rest of that title. The Better Beef one is going to come out first. I'm just getting ready to send a book proposal off to see if I can pick up a publisher for it. So,
Nice.
but
Good.
it'll be a paper book and then ebook. So that the ebook I'll be able to put pictures in, which we won't the paper book. So
Okay. Okay. Very
yeah, it's
good.
exciting.
Well, it's been great to visit with you, Patty. We appreciate the work that you're doing, the legacy that you're carrying on. Speaking of legacy, what do you want to be remembered by? What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, I want to be remembered for the person that helped others grow better plants and better food.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure it. I mean, I spend most of my time educating, and so when I go back up around the teachers or different people at the school, they're like, "What do you miss teaching?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm really enjoying teaching now because I'm teaching people that want to learn."
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I'm definitely a teacher. I think I'm fourth generation teacher. So the teaching
Wow.
part is coming definitely. And when I was young, I was like, I would never do that, but no, here I am. Yep.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, congratulations on your new books. That's amazing. I know it's a labor of love to write a book. I'm looking at my copy here, right?
Yes.
And it takes a lot of effort. We appreciate that you've been able to share your wisdom through your books, through your teaching, and through this podcast. So we'll bring it back to you for a final thought. But everyone, thank you for listening to this podcast today. What is the thing that you're committing to do because you've spent the time here with us today? I know that there's lots of ideas and we don't have to do them all. If there's one thing that you can commit to that I'm going to at least try it this year, do that and measure your success. And that's how we make progress. So any last thought, Patty?
Yeah, I want to encourage people to strive to get to that plant that's not doing 20% photosynthesis. And
Yeah.
when you start seeing it, it's jaw dropping. You're just like, wow, I can't believe it. I did it on my houseplants. My houseplants are 10 years old, looked healthy as could be. And I thought, that's what those plants can do genetically.
Uh,
And I put the micronutrients on them twice in the winter. It's in um, late October, once again in November. And in December, by early January, they're all growing great big leaves that are like a foot taller than the plants ever put out before. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they've been loafing. They haven't lived up to genetic potential. They were still waiting for these micronutrients to be able to really do photosynthesis really well. And so that's called happy plants. I didn't term that plant. There was another guy that termed that name. But when you start seeing happy plants, you're like, wow, I'm really a plant guru because I got this down.
yeah.
So, and I would encourage everybody to try to do that and push yourself a little past what we've known as our norm, because there's some way better stuff out there for plants and what plants can do for us and the health of those plants, which will be the healthier of our cattle and our animals that make healthier humans. And then I think we'll be happier.
No doubt. Yep. Yep. I agree. I agree. Well, Patty, thank you very much. And listeners, thank you for tuning in. Check it out. We'll be doing these solo ones interspersing with our regular webinars. Encourage you to check out the rest of the work that we do at Ag Steward. Have a blessed day and take care, everyone.
Thanks, Jared. Thank you.
Thank you.